Okay, welcome back to Growth Without Referrals, the podcast where leaders talk honestly about how they're winning new clients beyond word of mouth. I'm Mark Ferguson, and today I'm joined by Lori Kirkland, founder of DeepHumanX. And Lori works at the intersection of human experience, leadership transformation, and AI, helping organizations translate the promise of AI into real business performance without losing that human element. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And Lori, you've spent years in customer experience, leadership, and transformation work. What led you to start DeepHumanX?
So I have, like you said, I have 25 years of technology under my belt. I've been CTO, VP of Innovation. I always find myself at the intersection of technology and how do we help the humans involved? Because there's a lot of people who are thinking only about the technology. But for me, I'm not a tech bro saying it's all about the tech. Let's use the technology to better help people. And after, 15, almost 20 years in management consulting, I then moved to a Fortune 500 where I led a division of product UX and tech. And one of the things that was missing for me as I was looking at, making some real transformations, kind of getting the systems flexible, because anyone in technology knows that with machine learning starting in 2015, we were about to do some changes. And I was really saddened by I couldn't find any companies that were actually strategically including the people side of change with technology. So often it was moving to think about the design after the tech had been built, or maybe some combinations, but really a big separation between business and technology. Fast forward to November 30th, 2022, when ChatGPT came out, and that wiped out really the need for understanding how the technology works at all. So it really did start to eliminate that tech business divide, because the tech world was being, traditional tech was being innovated. And so I founded DeepHumanX with the idea of, as this new technology is coming out, we got to watch out for the humans involved. There's a lot of things about the workplace that, cause burnout, cause disengagement, really affect us as humans. And so DeepHumanX has the big main purpose of how do we use the change AI is bringing to better serve humanity. So everything we're doing is looking at how our team's flowing together. How's the leadership mindset changing? Because there's a lot of change, right? And so we're really looking at the human side of change as this technology grows.
Lori, I love that. And you're right. The velocity of change has increased. And what's amazing, I love, is you're looking at what's the impact to the human element within the organization. And I think that's huge. And when you first started growing your work, what did growth actually look like?
Well, to be honest, it looked like a lot of craziness, a lot of chaos, because what we're talking about is a lot of shifting of business models from a fixed industrial mindset that is no longer holding up into a much more expansive, holistic view. So it's almost like we're moving from the micro to the macro view. Well, in that is a lot of changes. So I found myself chasing and messaging for things like AI is the new hot shiny thing. That lasted very little because everybody was on that hype, right? Automating emails, automating LinkedIn messages, all of the things that are, yes, you get more content out there, but it's less and less human involved. And then I found myself kind of that next jumping categories, because some of the things that are coming up for people are existential questions, like, do humans work do humans matter in the workplace? And that's been very interesting to see. Some people are like, I'm going to automate out and get rid of them. That, thank goodness, is passing. And now we're to the place where people are like, all right, how do I actually use all this intellectual knowledge that my team has about my business and use the technology to support them? So I found myself jumping across literally like business psychology, organizational design, philosophy, deep technology, a lot of brain science. I love neuroscience. That's my degree, and I'm always thinking about thinking. So I found myself kind of going from group to group to group. it was a lot of experimentation, if I'm going to say anything. It's been a lot of chaos. And now where I've dialed into is that it's really about the things that I'm passionate about, which is what are the human problems that we want to ease? The two biggest things that I feel like everybody has is time and ease, right? Like we all feel like we can't do anymore. We've been stretched. So let's work on cluttering, unclearing the stuff in your head that can be, because since we're moving, we've got to leave some of the stuff behind. Since we're in a time of change. And then the second is ease. Like nobody wants more technology to go, to make already a broken system faster. So where I would
Mm.
say the last year has been really focused on is, freeing up time, not only through the technology, but really through your mental space. So you have room for creativity, critical thinking, all the things that AI are not. And then ease. How do we the work world's got to give at some point, right? Nobody can handle more meetings that are useless. So that's really where I found. And I found that through podcasts, through my own podcast, through really just specific messaging around that has been leading people to say, hey, I'm curious about what you're talking about. I don't really understand it, but I know that feels right. And that has been a successful path that we are just trying to continue to grow on.
Okay. And that's great. What were the biggest early challenges that you had?
Holy cow, the fear
Mm.
around AI in the world right now is huge, right? Like everywhere,
Right.
we're all watching globally. There's all this divide and geopolitical struggles, and it's like everywhere, right?
Mm.
And then in the time of change, it's causing a whole bunch of stress because we're moving from a very predictable world where it's a lot of linear thinking, a lot of analysis, a lot of roadmaps of here's the steps and work backwards and blah, blah, blah. But we've almost as a society internationally, we've grown out of that business model. So the idea of being able to lead in constant change is really scary. Add on top of that, you've got all this new technology that everybody still thinks they have to learn it instead of just
Mm.
thinking with it. And so I think the fear was like really surprising, and that has not gone away. We've learned to kind of head on help people through their, understanding their own purpose to resolve their own fear so they can see, hey, wait a minute, this change might be worth it if I can change, get to something of value for me. But the fear has been it's more than I've ever dealt with, and I've always been in the intersection of digital transformation, cultural transformation, but it is running rampant, and there's a lot of people who are in that fight, flight, freeze state that we do more work with there, which has been interesting. But we're also, because we work a lot with mindsets, we're very comfortable with working with the emotions. Yeah, it's been such a great teacher too, a healthcare professional, right? When you see others and their, big issues with fear, it also forces me to look at my own things that I'm fearful of and work through and heal those as well. So it's been a really interesting, that's probably not the business answer you were looking for, but I would say that is the biggest thing in the marketplace today.
And Lori, I think that is a theme. There is a fear. There is a fear of AI. Everybody hears stories or they make stories up in their mind if they don't know. And it's so important in order to have a high performing workforce. If they have fear, that could inhibit them meeting their objectives, right?
Oh, yeah. We always say change moves at the speed of safety. And it's not your safety as a leader and you telling people, it's do I see the value for myself enough to go worth the pain, to go through the pain for the outcome of the change. And so in our work, that idea of change moves at the speed of safety, use our my favorite model right now is our relevance model, where we use how the brain is naturally looking at every situation. Like every time you walk in the room, you have mechanisms that your brain is trying to figure out, is this safe or not? And we use that, we biohack the same mechanisms to say, okay, wait a minute, let's look at your context of what's the problem you're trying to solve. what does it mean for you? And Mark, nobody's business has asked them in a long time, what does it mean for you? But since we're creating a whole bunch of new stuff, we get this like wide open opportunity to bring that in. In that anchoring in your own relevance, your own purpose, and then looking at what are some assumptions that you may have
Yeah.
created without even realize, that's what dissolves that very quickly. It's funny because when you dissolve the fear, all of a sudden people are full of innovation, full of opportunities.
Yes.
Circumstances haven't changed, but their opportunities had. And it is really flipping cool to watch. And then to see how the technology can make those things that seem like they're very big dreams to be like, no, we can do that. Or we can at least move you, 3 years ahead of what it would have taken you to even get to the first stage. Pretty darn cool to watch the human computer, the brain, unlock and create things that will better each individual, and at the same time is actually moving the teams and organizations forward.
Right. Lori, that's a great insight. And one thing you said in an earlier conversation really stood out to me. You talked about focusing on the signal instead of chase. And I love that framing. Can you explain to me what that means?
Yeah. So I'm a natural cheerleader, but I'm not a natural salesperson. So I've always been good at throwing parties, being at a party, having a good time. But I initially was stepping into, having my own company. And this is not my first company, but just that entrepreneurial mindset again from leaving corporate, I stepped into it with like, well, I need more activity. I have to have all my days filled. I have to do whatever. And there's all these automation tools and it's amazing. However, what I have learned is that I don't work best, and a lot of people don't work best on just getting bombarded with emails and outtouch. Someone gave me this statistic in like November of last year, so I'm sure it's even more, but 3.2 billion emails go out a day. So it's not about working harder to put more content out. Instead, it's about how are you communicating and narrating the vibe that you're seeing. And it's really interesting that vibe coding has come up in AI because basically it's the same idea. We have to look at what is it that people are valuing and what is the feeling that is coming up. Not every email that's going out, every task, right? That's very microscopic. Instead, during the time of change to find a little bit of anchoring, you need to start, like for me, I look at like, wait a minute, those people are messaging in the same way that feels right for me. And I've had some crazy, amazing connections with people that I'm like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to be, meeting for yet, but we got connected. And then it turns out that they're like solving a deep, deep problem that I didn't even know I had, but I've had it for 20 years, right? And it's solving this business problem. And so by signal, what I mean is owning who you are and having the confidence to put your voice out there so others who are we're all in the midst of change can say, okay, I don't know exactly where we're going because no one knows and it's all unpredictable. But if I look for this vibe, this feels safe for me. This is like
Mm,
something that I can attach to. And I don't know, do you like music, Mark?
I do.
Do you like to go to live music
I
events?
do.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I
me
do.
too. And my favorite thing, right, is when you're dancing and you look over and you're like, hey, there's somebody like 2 sections over and you guys meet and you're like, dude, we're like grooving on this. Like we are clearly listening and feeling the music the same way and you kind of lock in with them. That's the type of signal that I'm looking for or I'm talking about is you're looking for people who are on the same beat as you. And that comes from being brave and putting your signal out there so that others can say, yes, I align with it and no, I don't. And so does that make sense? So it's a lot more of
It does.
owning your own weird whatever way we all are beautiful humans that are full of artistry and complexity and it's like owning your own vibe so that others can say wait a minute yeah I'm feeling you can start
Yeah.
recognizing others and that has been one it's gotten me out of the thing of I have to sell and then the activity trap of more activity is actually success. It's not. Then we got machines to do that. The more activity, let them do it. But it's really, man, the expansion that it's brought my world is pretty phenomenal, right? Like it's really cool to be like, huh, I never thought that would even be, like I have a partner I'm working with right now that in my mind on paper would be like the complete opposite and enemy of what I'm trying to create with the humanness, to bring more
Mm.
humanness into the workplace. Yet I'm learning a lot because we are so opposite, but we still have the same vibe of the overall hope of bringing humanity. So it's about like chasing the signal and then being brave enough to say, how are we the same instead of how are we different? Make sense?
It does, Lori, and thank you for that analogy of the concert because that kind of just brought it home. It just ding, it went off. And
Yeah.
thank you. And why doesn't traditional outbound work? It doesn't work as well today.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I would
Okay.
just say the idea of more. I mean, you have literally every organization in the world, right, still thinking with that industrial revolution mindset of fixed, of do this step and then this step and this step. So you have literally every marketing team in the world just pushing out content and using technology to generate that. What's really interesting is so there's just a lot of bombardment, but what's really interesting, and I'm not really into fashion or design, but I value those people who really are into that, and watching some of the big names tell their story and understand how important, like they're actually using it to create more of their story. They're not just getting content out for the sake of activity. Check, they're actually using it to tell a story that never says anything about their product. It just speaks to this is what the brand is getting. So I, funny enough, in the corporate world have used inspiration from the design world because I'm like, wait a minute, these guys are really classic storytellers. And that is something that humans are the only species that we know of that use storytelling to pass down. And so it's not about stopping putting out a lot of cold messages. It's about making sure that your stuff is not generic. Like, give up we're
Mm,
the number 3 in this market, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. You and your marketing team fall in love with it because you see it all the time. So you're teaching your brain that that means good. Nobody else cares about that, right? Talk about the problem you want to solve for your customers and be brave to say, we think we've got this, but here's something we're thinking about, and start narrating the story of the changes you're going through. That's what puts out signal by, again, using the mechanisms in our brain of humans love storytelling. That's how our ancestors have passed down everything. So
true.
make sure there's that human element in any messages you're putting out, and do not outsource it to ChatGPT to say, hey, make me a really great story on how I'm the number 1 person on this. My product does this, this, and this. Like, screw your product. Let's talk about the problem you're solving and make it a no-brainer that your product is there instead. And that's a way to put out signal over chasing somebody.
That's great. And Lori, how do the right clients find you?
I mean, referrals are always the easiest and the
Okay.
best. However, what I've seen is, again, along with that signal that we were talking about, let's go back to the concert analogy because I'm a little deadhead at heart and I love my jam bands. And some people are like, ooh, jam bands are so boring. And I'm like, oh, I love to watch the band try to play together as the audience is trying to come together and right, change the energy. And that's really what it's been like, where it's been, I put a LinkedIn post out there and somebody posts it and then shares, oh, you should meet this, to that vibe, so to speak, and that signal to say, how do I continue to just chase where I feel the right signal is moving to?
Mm,
And then I anchor on that signal instead of trying to chase, because you can chase 1,000 things, right? But if I'm looking for that, I follow that. And then it's been interesting. I mean, I'm working with companies that are engineering firms, tile manufacturers, like tons of healthcare, like industries that I wouldn't consider to be like the people I would have when we started DeepHumanX that I was like targeting. I'm like, whoa, but they're really looking, they all have big human workforces, and they're like, no, we really do want, like, we don't believe in getting rid of the people. We want to use them to make more of an impact. So that following the signal has led to I wish it was always, just I could just pick up the phone and that's how all my clients came. But that is really how it's come through expansion and in. And then a lot of communities too. Have you noticed that communities are popping up?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes. I do too.
It's looking at more of the collective of, all right, clearly, right, our politicians and current leaders of businesses are using the same playbook. So it's going to be up to us to start connecting to say, okay, how do we make the changes? That's also been one fun for me because I'm stepping into, I don't know, places that I'm like, holy cow, like I'm in this room. This is really cool, but it's like scary, but it's like, really fun. But those type of connections, so meeting with communities that are of interest to me personally, that also is bringing in flow, and giving me more stories to write about on LinkedIn, giving me more, stories to put in when we're messaging people in my workshops. It gives me more tangible things to say, hey, here's a leader of 16 different companies who's struggling with the same thing you guys are, right? Like it gives me more of the stories. So I hope that helps.
Yes, yes. And Lori, we touched on this a little earlier, but you had mentioned something fascinating that last year many organizations were frozen around AI, but now you're starting to see them start to thaw and take action. What are you seeing in the market right now?
So, okay. I'm going to actually start with what you're talking about, the frozen versus the thaw. So last year, DeepHumanX, we did a research project where we interviewed over 200 executives from all leadership level from every industry. And so our goal was to say, okay, what are the patterns? Let's really look at what are the patterns that are commonalities. Where are people at? Like in this world of you could be everywhere, like where are people at? So that gave us a really clear view into, what was it industry specific? What was across the board? And one of the things that we really noticed was that, going from 24 into 25 was, is AI going to take root? On top of that, we had, tariff changes and different, well, I guess that was more 2025, but we had more, like, we had some like unstable things that came in on top of, there's just a lot of changes. So what we found was that it felt like people were really frozen, and meaning that they weren't hiring, they weren't developing. They were very much saying, this is the plan we have. Let's just go along with it because it's too risky for me. I don't want to be spending money when I have no clue if it's the right area or not. And then come about mid last year, we noticed that it was like, okay, yes, everybody is investing in their own, like, learning how to do prompts, just playing around with the technology. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, more people were getting comfortable with moving beyond the theory of AI, of what it could do, or the fear of AI, and started playing. So coming into the last 6 months of the year, we started to see the thaw. Now, not everyone is there yet, but it's easing. That frozen fear is easing. Coming into 2026, what is interesting is seeing how fast the models are moving, but the titans are, when I say the titans, I mean like Meta, Google, right? Anthropic, all of the big players they're kind of competing it out, but there is this change in realization that for most businesses, we can let them fight over the technology and we can start building alongside the technology, right? Like it's almost like we had like the railroad tracks that we've been waiting for 20 years in technology are finally built. And so as a company, what's happening as organizations are seeing, well, I don't actually have to try to just put a screw in the AI railroad tracks. I can actually build a town next to it, or a place to access nature, or a place of worship, or whatever the community is around it. And so that is where I'm starting to get really excited, right? It's still a little bit in the future, but it's like breaking where people are starting to see like, wait a minute, those titans can battle out the tech. Since I don't have to understand the tech anymore, I just can create use cases that help my business. You want me to give you a use case for that?
Absolutely.
So an example is working with an engineering company where their engineering is transportation engineering. So they're very they have a lot of safety issues and a lot of governments and working with government regulations that they have to consider. So watching them shift from, my gosh, I'm so far behind, or I feel like I'm far behind on AI and we don't get it. And yes, we're playing around with it, but half the org is, half the org isn't. There's resistors, there's adopters. We're looking at all of it. We saw them shift to realizing that, like, wait a minute, they're engineers. They're the perfect people to build new towns, to be smart about it, to integrate the learnings from the past. And instead of focusing on how do I jump onto the AI, railroad tracks, they're moving now to like, wait a minute, we have to start thinking about and designing autonomous vehicles. We have to start thinking about how transportation is going to change. So it's the shift from thinking that you have to build the software, which is really how it's been the last 20 years, into like, wait a minute, now I get to go use the
Mm.
skills that I'm best at and start building alongside the railroad, which is pretty exciting, scary, and freeing all at the same time. Does that help?
That helps. And thanks for sharing that use case. So, one of the themes of the podcast is what leaders try beyond referrals and what works and what doesn't. And you mentioned you've experimented with things like large scale AI content distribution. And what did you learn from that?
I'll share with you a super big failure. We were doing like 20,000 emails a week or something like that, ridiculous, for almost 4 months going into 2024 into 2025, and I think we got like 2 calls from it. I was like, "Well, this is a lot of effort to be putting in to get like no return." So, yes, we do still put out content, but that's just not the main thing. I have a podcast, so that also works as a new, like, right, there's the currency of just being out there and narrating stories. I've used podcast guests as leads, which is pretty cool. I think that's a model that's starting to come out, which is awesome, which is you look for people who are great on the topic and they may be a client. So I think that is one that people are
Mm.
using. The LinkedIn lives, the cohorts are also a big thing. Like with the technology, people are still looking for connection. So like I'm running a cohort for women this spring that is all around with this nonprofit group called She Lives Intentionally. That's all around helping women, see themselves in the future. So how do you
Wow.
take some of the mental load off while you're learning AI, right? Like you're like, check, yes, I'm learning to think with AI for business, but I'm also reducing the load. So people are really liking the idea of I'm learning, but I'm also connecting to a community and a group that I can tie back into. And so I think that is one that's really interesting to watch. People just don't want more technology to get more separated. Like we are all realizing the value of community. And I think that has been exciting. And that's even cohorts with
Yes.
businesses. So different business leaders, right, who are coming and saying, okay, I don't know, I want to know, but I want to work with different leader. I work across industries just to hear what some of the same problems are and then how other people are solving them. And then you learn yourself just by hearing others with their problems come through with it. And then, yeah. And so there's a lot of other things. And then we also are doing a lot of work on the human operating system. So really playing
Mhm.
with universities, really looking at, research, really looking at ways that are like, how do we actually help make the shift easier? Because funny enough, even though humans say we don't like change, like literally change is our number one evolutionary trait, right? Like we have this big brain so we can look more holistically and make changes when we feel safe. And so we've done a lot of work with the human operating system, which is like, wait a minute, what patterns are you running that need to be disrupted? What patterns are you running that are your superpowers, right? Like keep running those. And at the same time, how is this particular team creating an energetic pattern that is leading, to an outcome you don't like? And that disruption has also been really good at helping us with the land and expand idea of, right, when you get a client and people start to see how a team is running certain patterns, they're like, oh my God, wait, we can use that over here and we can use it over there.
Love it. And so, Lori, if you were advising a consulting or transformation leader today who wants to grow,
Mhm.
but doesn't want to rely purely on referrals, what would you tell them?
I think first and foremost, find your anchors. Everybody has fear. So if you yourself can understand that you have fear and not be afraid to share your own transformation in this time of change, that right there is a gift that you will impact every time you talk to somebody. You're going to be impacting the lives around them, including your team members, including your families, right? So it's about, reconnecting with like, wait a minute, in this time of rapid change, I have to acknowledge that I might have some fears, and where do I want to anchor? So, what's my relevance? What's my purpose? The second thing is a curious mindset. People are happier when they step out of the fear of just surviving and are like, okay, how might I be looking at this that's really limiting my views? And so start to ask, like, what lesson is this experience treating me? Or what lesson is this problem teaching me? And that curiosity is honestly, it's contagious. And so the minute you become curious, you stop posturing as the leader who knows the answer, and you start inviting others to become curious too. So those would be my two big things. Anchor yourself and adopt a curious mindset, because we're all going through transformation, whether you want to admit it or not.
It's so true. So true. And Lori, if people want to learn more about you or DeepHumanX, where should they go?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's under Lori Kirkland. It says CCXP. So I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Feel free to connect with me there. You can also check out our website at deephumanx.com. But ideally, anyone who is a change agent who's like, I'm ready to do something different, like those are the people who I'm really looking to connect with. And I would invite anyone who feels like they're one of those people to connect with me.
Excellent. And Lori, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your perspective and the work you're doing. And thank you for being here.
Mark, thanks for having me. What a pleasure to talk with you. And I just appreciate you having this conversation out loud.
Thank you.
Thank you.